like what is the reason or motivation behind transitioning from a QA role to a technical program manager role?
I think the motivation is pretty simple. I needed a change. I was getting too comfortable with my role. I took a break. I was working in Bangalore, and then I decided to do my master's.
Could you also tell us like what are the skills needed to transition to a technical program manager role? Like you mentioned that you were working with your manager, right? Like what do you think were the skills that you acquired?
I knew the product very well. I knew the features very well. I knew the in and out of the product. The tech industry for almost 8 years. I knew how the SDLC works. I've been in and out of the whole development process. So that background helped me quite a bit.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Khushbu Sheikh, and welcome to the session 3 of Tech Exploration Hub. Today, I have with me Nishchita Kashyap, who is the technical program manager at Google. And this session is also very special to me because she is my college mate from my master's. And I'm really happy that she's here to share her experiences and insights about career transitions. And with that said, I will let Nishita give a short introduction about herself and talk about her career experiences.
Thanks, Khushbu. Really happy to be part of your third session. All the best to you, and I hope you have you have me again on like the 100th session again.
Thank you.
All right, a little about me. I'm Nishchita Kashyap. Like Khushbu said, I'm a technical program manager with Google. Before Google, I used to work with Amazon, and then I've also worked with Expedia, with Orbit, with BMC Software. So I've worked with a lot of. I have a total experience of around 10 years. Majority of which has been as a QA, as a QA engineer. As a TPM, it's been 4 years now. So that's a little bit about my career. And from a personal standpoint, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and who takes up most of my time. And I would say this is my third career. Being a mom is like my third career. But it is what it is. All right.
I can,
That's it from my introduction.
I can totally relate to it, Nishita. So yeah, let's just get started with the questions that I have for you. I wanted to know like what is the reason or motivation behind transitioning from a QA role to a technical program manager role?
Um, I think the motivation is pretty simple. I needed a change. I was getting too comfortable with my role. Um, I I I did the role of a QA for almost 8 years. I knew the whole process. I knew what to expect. I knew even though the products are different, it's still the same kind of work. So I took a break. I was working in Bangalore, and then I decided to do my master's. And I came to the US, did my master's. Unfortunately, during COVID, it was COVID times when I graduated, so it was slightly hard to find the job that I wanted. So at that point, I needed a job. So QA being my expertise, I went back to being a QA. I got a role with Amazon as a QA. Um, I did enjoy it. It was a different culture because I've never worked in the US. So it was different culture, different product. Amazon had different processes, but again, it was still QA. So in Amazon, I had a really good manager. I was with Amazon Halo. The product is no longer available in the market. It is shut down. Uh, but but the product was really great, and I spoke to my manager about wanting to transition into a TPM. So he provided me an opportunity where I could do 50% of my time was I was doing my QA role, and 50% of my time I was doing a TPM role with the same team. Um, so that sort of helped me understand and evaluate whether the role is right for me and whether I'm interested in that role and whether the role is challenging for me and whether it is something that I want to move into. So after 6 months, for around 6 months of doing that, I decided I want to full time be a TPM. And then my manager, I worked with my manager and we made that happen. And from Amazon, then I moved to Google. Google, again, of course, I moved as a TPM.
Okay, sounds good. That's great. So could you also tell us like what are the skills needed to transition to a technical program manager role? Like you mentioned that you were working with your manager, right? Like what do you think were the skills that you acquired since you
Hmm.
wanted to move into this role?
That's a hard question. That I feel like TPM is it's very
Very.
hard to put down a set of skills, but I'll try. I think so. What are the skills that helped me transition into a TPM? I'll answer that first. Um, as a QA, I had a I knew the product very well. I knew the features very well. I knew the in and out of the product. That really helped because I knew the technical stack. When as soon as there is a bug that is discovered, I have an idea as to where I need to start looking. So the root cause analysis, the deep diving, all of those skill sets does come in handy as a TPM.
Okay.
And then I feel like organization is like the core of a TPM.
Okay.
Like keeping and as a QA, you again have to make sure your test plans are organized, um, your bugs are prioritized. So all of that does add value as a TPM. And I think um, being being in the tech industry for almost 8 years, I knew how the SDLC works. I've been in and out of the whole development process, so that background helped me quite a bit to transition into from a QA to a TPM role.
So basically, like you mean to say like having a structured approach, like you need to have a structured approach when you become a technical program manager. Like that's the main skill set that you need to have. Like,
I mean, yes and no. It is one of the main skill sets, yes.
okay,
I feel like the that according to me, that's what defines a good TPM versus aspiring to be a good TPM.
okay,
Because if you're organized in the way you present your project, you're organized in the way you present your timeline, that clarity that you bring into your project artifacts is something that it kind of everybody can relate to it. Everybody understands it a lot better, and um, everybody is aligned quickly as opposed to creating any confusions.
okay, okay. Sounds good. So could you also like tell us, since you've worked as a technical program manager in Amazon and Google, like a few things about what are the roles and responsibilities of a technical program manager in general? Like, um, what are the day-to-day responsibilities?
So, mm, so as a TPM, I would say you're responsible for a program, and this has many facets to it. Starting with planning, and that would involve budgeting, resourcing, um, figuring out who the stakeholders would be, what are the dependencies. So the early stages where you actually come up with like a roadmap, a timeline, hash out all the dependencies, figure out who are the resources who are going to be working on it, define the scope, define requirements. So that's I would say the planning phase of TPM, like a program launch.
Okay,
That's a very important phase for a TPM because that establishes the planning establishes how effective the execution would be.
maybe.
Step
Okay,
two would be execution, where you're implementing the plan that you've created.
we did.
And of course, you're never alone here. You have your managers, your individual contributors, all contributing to this plan. And then, so execution would be, have it laid out in sprints, have your scope broken down into these sprints, and of course, the engineers would be obviously working on delivering them. But I, as a TPM, ensure that the plan stays on track. And if it's not staying on track, my responsibility is making sure I call out the risks early. So for as an example, I have to I want to call out that, you know, I can foresee that because of these risks and these bugs, we are not going to be launching in the next month as we had planned. We are going to be slipping by 3 weeks because A, B, C, D, E, and I feel the mitigation should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we get to it? And of course, I have to work with the engineers and the managers to get to this. And that's one part of it. Second part of it is once I come up with all of these risks, I have to make sure I provide visibility into these risks and make sure the leadership is aware of it. Make sure everybody's aligned.
Okay.
So that's part two. And then the third part, which is very, very important, which people tend to sort of move away from, is making sure the rollout happens smoothly and successfully. And even after rollout, typically everybody takes care of deployment, everybody takes care of on calls, and then after that, how are you saying that your feature is successful? So I feel that the TPM should also think of it from that angle. What are the metrics to call out as what are the success criteria? So all
Okay.
of that has to be factored into like the rollout plan.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. This is great. Thanks for all the information. So what were the challenges you faced while you were applying for like the technical program manager role? Like, since you've given interview for like, Amazon and Google, like what do you think were main challenges that you encountered?
I mean,
It's
every
been
interview
time.
is hard. And frankly, every interview is hard. Any role for that matter. You have the nerves, you don't know what to expect. But
Yeah.
specifically from a role of a TPM, I feel um, it's very behavioral. And while it's behavioral, I feel that it, you're also being assessed from a technical standpoint. So even though the questions are, tell me a time when you were able to deliver a successful project, you have to walk through what made the project successful, but you also need to showcase your technical strengths.
Mm,
So I feel during the preparation of a TPM interview, the 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 you have to think through your project. You have to think through what your highlights of each of those projects were,
mm,
and I feel that I invested a lot of time in that, and I feel you've forgotten what you've done in the past,
mm.
in the past 4 years. So just sitting down, thinking through what your projects were, what your highlights were, and I'm a person who writes a lot, so I wrote that all down and then refactored it and made sure everything has metrics. So I think investing a lot of time to
Mm.
prepare for the interview in terms of thinking through what your projects were, what your highlights were, goes a long way. Because once you have your stories, and once you know what the highlights of each of the stories were, it's easy to reproduce that in an interview, and you feel a lot more confident in the
Okay.
interview.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. So you basically kind of use a star method for like the behavioral questions, um, to deliver all those, your thought processes and your previous experiences using the star method.
Yes, that's definitely a good way of structuring your answer. For me, quite frankly, what I felt was
Ba-
you're giving your answer when you you have to go back to the time where you actually delivered something, and you
okay.
have to think through how it was. So
Okay.
when you're talking about a challenging time, you have to think through how challenging it was. So when
Okay.
you're delivering your reply, that emotion has to be relayed. And
Yeah. And
if it
Mhm. And like
sorry,
you mentioned, it has to be a mix of technical as well as your
yeah,
manager skill set. Yeah. Okay.
correct. I mean, and if if you've gone through a challenging time and you're actually saying that, any questions that come, cross questioning that happens, you're very easily able to answer them because you actually went through them and you knew they were challenging and you knew the times where you had to, I don't know, provide some kind of visibility. It was very hard. Getting alignment was very hard. Dependencies, there were way too many dependencies, way too many bugs. So you've gone through all that. So reproducing that as an answer would not be very difficult. So your
Difficult.
preparation for the interview, you have to think through all of those challenges. You have to think through what happened, think through highlights, and have that handy. So that way, when you get questions in your interview, you know what you're talking about.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nishchita, for that answer. Amazing. So, um, okay. So, what advice would you give someone who wants to move into a technical program manager role? I know you covered most of it, but is there anything that you specifically want to tell someone who's trying to get into a technical program manager role?
Um,
Like even in their day-to-day tasks, suppose if they're not working as a technical program manager and they don't have the leverage or they don't have the opportunity to work like your manager and actually kind of helped you to do some work from technical program manager role, right? So if people don't have that, like how can they use their current role to like kind of prepare for this role? Anything?
um, I think being in a being if you have a software background, as in you've been part of an SDLC process, you've been part of feature launches, um, which means you've already seen how a TPM operates, and at
Okay.
some level you have been a TPM yourself. As in, when, let's say you're a software developer, um, you have to present your um, you know uh, um, design in a certain way. You use your TPM skills. You're a QA, you use your TPM skills. You are a I don't know, a tech lead, you use your TPM skills. So I feel TPM skills are something that you would have already used if you're been in an SDLC process in a
Mhm.
software industry. So the question is, do you want to do that full time? You have to because a role of a TPM is very you have to be meticulous at all points. So the
Mhm.
question is, are you ready for it? Are you ready to make sure the program is a success by being meticulous about your tracking, your dependency hashing, your risks management? So the, the question is, you've done it once, but are you ready to do it every day?
Okay.
So that's something that I guess only you can answer. And I mean, what is the harm in trying it, right?
Fine.
You
Yeah.
can be a TPM or try out the role, see if you like it, talk to a TPM and understand whether this is something that interests me. And if it does, there are courses you can take. There are, always express, and I would say express interest that
Mhm.
you want to move. You never know when opportunity opens up. So if you want something, ask for it and wait. You will definitely get it.
Totally agreed. Amazing. I like that answer. So the next one that I have was, um, do you know what's the main difference between a technical project manager versus a technical program manager? If you are not aware, like we can pass that question, but I thought maybe you might have an answer if you know what the difference is.
I feel like technical program manager, technical project manager, technical product manager, program manager, um, they all have very similar roles and responsibilities, um, and they're very specific to an organization and to a team. A technical program manager at Google, at so I work for home and health.
Yeah.
In my team would be very different from how a technical program manager will be in, I don't know,
Mm.
Facebook.com, yeah,
Okay.
at Meta. So the role is very specific to an org, but generically, I feel a technical program manager is looking more is overseeing a little more on a program level, as in, you know, I feel a program have multiple projects.
Okay.
So a technical program manager is more managing
Mm,
the feature multiple features, whereas a technical project manager could be looking at just one particular project.
okay.
But again, like I said, it's very subjective to the team, to the org. Um, so
I
yeah.
think that's very true. I think amongst all these roles, the commonality is like interacting with stakeholders. I think that's the main thing that you do, right? Like interacting with a lot of stakeholders, day to day, internal and external both, I believe so.
Yeah, yeah, sure. For sure.
Yeah. So lastly, my last question would be, is there anything that you would do differently if you were to make this transition again? While you were trying for roles, applying, and now that you're in that role, you felt like, oh, I should have, maybe done this or tried this while I was applying. Is there something that you thought that could have been different?
Um, I wouldn't change the way I approached it, because I really liked that I was able to try the rollout, and it was not like it's not like a one-way door, right? I had the chance to come back and be a QA if I didn't like it. So I wouldn't change how I got to it. I would absolutely change the timeline of it, because when I was on my maternity leave, and as soon as I came back from the maternity leave, day one of maternity leave, I was in the new role, which was terrible to me because after maternity leave, do not get into a new role. I would say,
I can
if
totally
somebody is
understand.
from a timeline perspective, I would change that. I would go back to being a QA because it's a huge change coming back from maternity leave. Going to a brand new role was just very hard. So I wouldn't change how I approached it. I would just probably shift the timelines a little
The
bit.
timeline. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I completely agree. I think you should be in a role where you're more comfortable and flexible after
Yeah,
post-maternity. Totally get that.
agreed. 100%.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Nishita. This is, I think, really helpful. I'm sure that somebody out there who's trying to get into a technical program manager role, I think they'll benefit a lot if they watch watch this session